Explain Buddhist philosophy, Anatman, and Causality. So again, this is largely taken from What the Buddha Taught by Walpola Rahula. This is the focus of chapter 6, the doctrine of no soul, anatta. So I prefer the term Anatman, essentially mean the same thing, but I think Anatman is more clear of that we're going against the traditional Hindu teachings, the traditional Hindu philosophy. So we'll start there with a little bit of review. What is the Hindu Atman? This is the concept of the true self or the true soul. This is the animate life force, the innermost reality of a person, the spiritual principle of life. And we even see the root word of Atman, or soul, in the honorific title of Mahatma. This just translates to great soul. We're probably familiar with this from Mahatma Gandhi. It's a great honorific title given to Gandhi. So in contrast, within Buddhist philosophy, when we look at this concept of the self or the soul, it's imaginary. It's actually a false belief. We should not be adopting this or adopting it as true, believing in it in any kind. There's no corresponding reality to it. And in fact, we're going to go as far as saying that it produces harmful thoughts. If you think there is an I, that is the self, that is the soul, you are going to possess things as yours, when in Buddhist reality, nothing is yours. And we can take the next step and say this is the source of all the troubles in the world, from the internal ones of personal conflicts to the largest possible scale of wars between nations. It all comes back to believing in this concept of the self or the soul. It's like all evil in the world comes back to this imaginary false belief we should not be adopting and buying into, according to Buddhist philosophy. So if we take it a step further, right, because going back to Hindu philosophy, this idea of a soul comes from it being a little tiny piece of God, right? That this piece of God is inside of you. So by virtue of one, you have the other. So the Buddhist critique of this is that these concepts are just there as a form of self-protection and self-preservation, respectively. Meaning, the concept of God is there for self-protection, that a God will protect you, even after you die, even after life. There is a God protecting your soul. And this idea of a soul is that you are being preserved even after your life ends, even once you're dead. So here in Buddhist philosophy, we're going to teach against this current with the doctrine of no soul, or anatta, or atman. So how do we get here? Well, this concept of anatta, or anatman, was really a natural result of sorts through the Buddhist practices, the Buddhist philosophy, the Noble Eightfold Path. Just going through these Four Noble Truths. When Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, went through these meditations, he did an analysis of the Five Aggregates, and he came up with the teaching of the conditioned genesis. So when the Buddha analyzed the Five Aggregates, he found nothing behind them. He just found that the previous concept of the self was nothing but a temporary arrangement of your mental substance. And he thought he saw through this illusion and that he could teach others how to see through this illusion. And this also came up with the teaching of conditioned genesis. So this teaching is that nothing in the world is absolute. Everything is conditioned. And everything is interdependent. And this includes us. Right, we are not absolute. There's not an absolute part of us, like some kind of immutable soul. We are conditioned. We are not this, impermanent being, and everything is interdependent. There's nothing about us that doesn't depend on every other thing. So that's how we're kind of picking apart this concept of Atman here. So we can take this a step further and look at causality, which is always a fun philosophy to consider, especially from a Buddhist perspective. So if we take this Buddhist concept of conditioned genesis and we apply it to a causal perspective, so we start to see that there's a simultaneous arising, there's a web of all causes and all conditions working together that's operating behind all effects and all ends, and we're essentially ruling out this idea of a cause with no cause. This goes back to Aristotle, this goes to Hindu philosophy. Essentially, how are we getting this argument for a God that is its own cause, or is a cause that's beyond a cause, without a cause? So within this philosophy, all real things have different causes and different effects, but everything is caused by some effect. So then let's apply this this idea of causality to the concept of Anatman. Right, so we're now looking at this concept of Atman. This is where we started, right? We're going to try to, well, we're not trying to critique against it, but it's happening very naturally here along this line of thought. We can't say that there is or isn't Atman. One way or the other, for fact, for sure. Right? It's actually a concept that's outside causality. It's kind of like just saying it's a piece of God inside of you, right? So let's look at Anatman as a critique against this, right? So Anatman is the Buddhist response to saying Atman is incoherent epistemologically. Epistemologically meaning in terms of a theory of knowledge. How do you know this? How did you come to know this? Through what kind of logical, reasoning or argument? We're also going to take the further step and say it's actually so harmful, it's malignant, right? Going back to this, adopting this belief is the source of all the harm in the world. And it's an alternative to Atman, right? It's not the only option. This isn't the only thing you can choose to believe. You can choose to believe Anatman, right? That there's no self or no soul, and maybe this will lead to the end of suffering for yourself and maybe even for the whole world. That's the idea. So here, in this sense, when we're taking it in this really big picture and analyzing the five aggregates and the teaching of conditioned genesis, this conclusion of Anatman, or no self or no soul, is really the end of the Eightfold Path. This is the goal of those 3 disciplines of training, of all 8 of those samyak, of those components of righteousness. You should be arriving to this. This is a really big truth within Buddhist philosophy. So it's this culmination of sorts. There's one more I to dot or T to cross here, and that's looking at bhavana or meditations within Buddhist philosophy, and hopefully that should be the last blank that we have to fill in. But for now, on Anatman, I hope this helps.